Okay, our next speaker is Glendale Reyes. He is a youth career educator. He'll be talking about, this is the title of his talk, which is Real Talk Education for the Skills Economy. Let's welcome Glendale Reyes.
While we're getting set up, does everybody just stretch? Just kind of get up and stretch? Are you guys feeling okay? Yeah? You sure? I think you might need a stretch. If you want to stand up and feel stretch while we're waiting, feel free to go ahead and stretch. Is that? Okay, just so I can get a sense of the room, hands up very quickly. Who here is a student here in the room? Students? So one? Yeah, well, in an institution, I guess. Young professionals, hands up. Probably, okay, great. So we have about a young professionals. And then, of course, retired. Anybody retired? A couple, one or two. All right, there you go. That's my goal as well. I actually work on a career app, okay? Admittedly, when I first came to this conference, Amy asked me to come speak, and it's a technology conference. And, it's funny, I felt so underqualified when I saw everybody else with their doctorates. And, I'm just a youth educator, right? So a lot of the things that I do is I go to schools and I talk to students about their careers and life choices. I actually work on an app called Real Talk, okay? And Real Talk is a career app that crowdsources career information from young professionals, giving students advice that we wish we knew when we were their age, okay? So I actually lead this project right now, but the topic of my presentation is I am the lead of an actual platform, a tech app, and I have no tech skills, okay? I actually work with a developer. We hire developers, we hire graphic designers, but I don't actually even know how to edit the website, right? But how does that actually happen? So a lot of the things that I talk about in education, especially when I'm speaking to students, I love that how the speakers actually highlighted that we're not going to replace teachers with technology because we still need the very human element of being able to market the product. We have to be able to sell the product and engage people. And that's really what I do, all right? My role is I actually spoke to over 3,000 students all across Ontario. And I talk to students about what their life is going to be like after university or after college. And I kind of talk a little bit about the culture of education as well. Okay, so that's what I do professionally. I figured, I could talk to you about the app and the highs and lows of what it's like to work on an actual tech product. But I figured if I shared my career story of how I came from nothing to someone who was working on a career app, I think I could highlight some of the points of that whole human aspect, okay? So let's start off with right after graduation. Right after graduation, you feel amazing, right? For those people who just recently graduated, hands up, who recently graduated here? Just nobody actually recently graduated? You did? How did you feel when you graduated? Oh yeah, and you felt amazing, right? Like you feel great, It's like you finished all your education and you don't have to study anymore and you feel absolutely phenomenal, right? Until you start actually looking for a job. I actually graduated with a Bachelor of Science, double major in kinesiology and psychology, and I graduated with honors. And the reason I got 2 degrees is because, guess what? If I have 2 credentials, I have more opportunities. I was told I have more opportunities. And then I sent out resumes, okay? I sent out 100 resumes, all right? Now, just take a guess. Forget about how many jobs did I land. How many job interviews did I get? Okay, out of 100 resumes with the Bachelor of Science saying, guess what? I am a university grad, hire me. I have the skills and the potential. How many? Just yell it out. 3, lower, 2, lower. I saw you already. Yeah, 0. 0, guys. I got 0 callbacks. I actually got emails back saying, thank you, Mr. Reyes, for applying. but nobody said come in for that interview. And I said, what's going on? Is it just me? I was actually started Googling and I saw, you know what? There was an engineer who sent out 250 resumes, got 4 interviews and 0 job prospects. And I said, what's going on here? My mom, my dad told me to do well in school, get good grades, and when you have good grades, you're gonna be successful after. And I learned that there's a big problem, okay? And one of the biggest problems is academic inflation. 30 years ago today, your university degree actually equaled a job interview, at least, right? So if you had that university degree, it made sense. It actually mathematically made sense to get that university degree over the college degree because you're more likely gonna get a job, right? But in 2009, when I graduated, it clearly didn't match that. Why? Is it because school is less important? Of course not, right? It's just that there's so much in circulation now. I want you to think of university degrees like currency. If there are thousands of university degrees, and then there's an HR professional trying to distinguish who should get that job, it's not gonna be the differentiating factor anymore, right? And that's scary because we have graduates, 25, 26, 27, who are coming into the work world thinking that they're actually gonna get a job with their university degree, but actually, they need something more. And there's an actual serious crisis going on. It's actually called the quarter life crisis. And this is the things that I love to explain to new graduates, and this is what's gonna happen after university. And the quarter life crisis is just students actually coming home after they graduated, feeling like they don't actually have any valuable skills because they were promised the world and they didn't really get what they wanted. And it really hit home actually very close to here. April 23rd was my birthday, by the way. Oh, no. That's a clapping. April 23rd was my birthday. Do you guys remember what happened April 23rd? No, that was where just down the street, the attacks happened. So those attacks happened, and then I started to ask questions, and I said, well, how old is that guy? Did you know the guy was about 24, 25? And I said, how does that happen? And how does that happen? Things like that happen because they start to feel like life is not working for them, right? Now I'm not saying that every single 25-year-old who has a university degree or a college grad is gonna go be crazy like that guy. That is not what I'm saying. But let's pull it back a little bit, okay? How about just the depressed, right? How about the people who are just disengaged and they just wanna give up? There's a lot of students now living at home, not knowing what to do next because of the culture of education, okay? I present to classrooms all across Ontario, and all the students know, and I'm gonna quiz you guys on it right now. What are the top subjects in school today? If you were to say, what are the top 3 subjects? Just yell it out. Technology, physics, and chemistry. You're a little advanced, but what students would say is what? Math, English, and science. Math, English, and science. Why? It's because to get into university, you have to do well in math, science, and English, okay? So we value those subjects as more important than drama, phys ed, dance. It's not as important, right? You're just talented if you're good at drama, phys ed, and dance, right? But I actually have a counter argument. And for all you mathematicians out there, I actually have data to prove this. Now my question is, what do you think the most important skill is to get hired in the next 4 years? Sorry? Communication. Yeah, you guys are cheating. You're you're actually experts. Communication is one of them. What else do you think it is? We're at a, sorry? EQ. Yep. EQ is one of them. We'll see. So what's interesting is that every time we think about future education, we think as if technology is synonymous with innovation or synonymous with the future. But actually, according to this report by RBC, you could look it up, it's called Humans Wanted Future Skills. Of the 20,000 skills that they surveyed about HR managers all across Canada, Of the 20,000 skills, they did a comparison of what is the most important skill for being hired in the next 4 years. And unsurprisingly, can you see what the most important skill is at the far left of that graph? Active listening. Active listening. Thank you. We're going to cite Dr. Ashley again. Active listening, speaking, and critical thinking are the top 3. Why? And look where math is on this board. We're not saying it's not important. It's still important, but just not as important as active listening, speaking, critical thinking, and reading comprehension. Because if AI is going to take over doing the math, then we need people who need to work with technology. Okay? This report actually talks a lot about how instead of fighting against technology, we need to find ways to work with it, and we need to start developing those skills. Okay? But unfortunately, we keep educating our students the same way for the last 30, 40 years. So how do you actually get these skills? Okay? How do you get this active listening, critical thinking? And when I graduated in 2009, I didn't know. Okay? I didn't know. But I started thinking, and I started focusing on, okay, well, what skills do I actually have, Glenn? And frankly, when you graduate university, the only real skills you actually have is to be very good at writing tests, multiple choice exams, and research. So what do you think I did? I actually researched how to get a job, how to be successful in life. I spent hours. I've read so many books after university, I couldn't believe that I could read that much, okay? And I realized certain things. One of the pieces of advice I've got was focus on a specific challenge, okay? So instead of thinking about career paths, being a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, focus on a challenge that you want to overcome, okay? And what did I want to focus on? I actually wanted to help students with this issue because I wanted students to feel valuable after they graduated university. I wanted them to know they actually had practical skills. So I focused on the challenge. I put my foot down and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to help as many students as possible with this issue. Okay? The second thing I did was, so focus on the challenge. Number 2 was never do it alone. Ask people who actually have what you want. If you want to learn anything in life, ask the experts. And that's what I did, actually. So I actually went to a group of educators, and I'm actually happy that one is here today. Amelia, right there in the front. I actually started asking experts who have actually been there and done that. My challenge was I wanted to help students. These are some of the people who have been in classrooms for years and years and years, and they gave me very practical advice. Okay? They said, well, if you really want to work with students and you have no experience with students, I remember Emil says, why don't you go work with students? Right? And I said, well, I can't work with students. I don't have money. I don't have time. I need to find a job. They're like, no. If you actually want to get into this field, start working with students. And that's what I did. So I started building actually very practical skills. I started lecturing at York University, talking to students about the same issue. And then focusing on that challenge, things started to happen. When you actually start helping people with your talents, all of a sudden, good things start to happen. So I started lecturing at York University. I got some teaching gigs. After I got some teaching gigs, I did some coaching. I started building that confidence again, realizing that I actually had practical skills. The third piece of advice that I got was if you actually want to make money doing anything that you want to do is you have to start to think about how you can help that market, how you can help people with your skills. And that's what I did. So I started speaking. I got paid to do that. We started running networking events. By the way, all these things that I did here wasn't in a sequential order. I did all these things at the same time, because I was finding ways to make it happen. And in anything that you want to do, you have to continually find other opportunities to do it. Up in the middle there, I started running networking events, talking to students about this, or talking to regular people just like you about these issues. And then I actually thought I was gonna make a living with this nonprofit. It's a global problem-solving competition called Destination Imagination. I started doing free workshops for them, but you could only do free workshops for so long. And then I started actually working part-time for an education company. That's when I cracked, actually, by the way. I started working with an education company. And what's funny is part of their business model was to do birthdays. So I thought I was actually coming to this. I was like, yes, I'm going to help students. And I'll never forget that first time I put on a hand puppet at a birthday. So think about a university grad putting on a hand puppet, like just really trying to help kids. But I didn't take that experience for granted because it was actually those times that actually helped me be a better facilitator. So I kept trying all these other things, but then I got this other piece of advice. And the other piece of advice I got was, well, why don't you start doing what you love, but actually something that you're pretty good at, okay? What is something that you felt most accomplished in life, right? And the truth is, I felt most accomplished when I was breakdancing on stage, right? As a performer, as a hip hop artist, right? So this is how I started my iteration journey, my innovation journey. I said, how do I use breakdancing to help students? Well, I started youth leadership camps. So I was teaching youth leadership through breakdancing, okay? That was one iteration. As you notice, that is not me, that is actually my friend's daughter teaching a workshop from the skills that we taught her. Using the same breakdancing element, I started teaching workshops with newcomers. To overcome the language barrier, we used dance, and we innovated that way. So now we have two outlets to do this, okay? And then, of course, the natural one in breakdancing was we started actually running breakdancing competitions. And our breakdancing competitions got bigger and bigger and bigger. We actually have the biggest breakdancing brand in Canada right now called the Universal Breaking League. And it's called Freestyle Session Canada. People from all over come to this event, from Vancouver, Montreal, New York, Miami, just to compete and show off their skills. This was amazing because this was a joint initiative with my brother, who, by the way, is a professional engineer, because he wanted to help the same market as well, right? So the funny thing is, it's like, why am I talking about breakdancing? It all comes full circle. Once I put breakdancing at the top of my resume, that's when I started getting hired. How crazy is that, by the way? Breakdancing, instead of my university degree, I put breakdancing. Now, it wasn't because I went up to the hiring managers and said, hire me, I can dance, right? That's not what happened. I showed the critical thinking skills. I showed I can collaborate with people all across Canada. I showed I could market a product. And all those skills that I developed outside of school were the things that actually got me hired. And the funny thing is, I started breakdancing as a kid. So I wish I got that advice. Why don't you continue to do that? And I think for our future education, we need to continue to teach students that, it's not all about credentials. You need to build those skills outside the classroom, okay? What you do outside of school is just as important as what you do inside school. Never give up the best part of your life just because school doesn't measure it, okay? Now we need to start thinking about challenges. Why? Forget about being the doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Think about why you want to be the doctor, lawyer, or engineer, okay? Because then there are multiple iterations. Just like me, I found different ways to use breakdancing, and I found 3, 4, 5 different iterations. I couldn't show you all of them in this presentation, but I found other ways to do it. And when you start giving value back to other people, that's when good things happen, okay? Think about challenges over career path. And then lastly, share your story with people, okay? Share your story. Actually, that's your branding technique and how you network. I shared this same story with different iterations for the last 5 years, and I shared it all the way to a full-time job, all right? I started complaining about school for so long that people wanted to help me, and then I complained. You know what's funny? I complained about school so much that schools started hiring me to come and to complain to their students, right? So I call myself a school complaining speaker because I go to students and I talk to them about the difficulties of their education and what they can do about it. Just like me, I found ways to actually build those opportunities. So whatever you do, find unique ways to do it and show that human element of who you are. Okay? Show people what you can do. Because I promise you, you may forget this whole presentation, right? But for the young people here, this is actually what I do in schools. I actually show people my element. And what was my element? It was hip hop, breakdancing, and being creative with words. So I figured I'd just end this whole presentation by speaking in rhyme. So you remember the time this random guy started stretching your mind. I want you to think of things you never thought before. Think some new metaphors. Think you're done, you need to think some more. I need you to stretch your imagination to be that light of inspiration, because only through motivation and collaboration can we influence a nation. And I know some of you thinking, man, that bar is too high. And who's this fantasy guy up there telling me lies, claiming the limits of my dreams are the stars and the skies, and he can't change people's minds no matter how hard he tries. Yo, I know I sound optimistic, but it's realistic, like an autistic. Your strengths are specific. Find the spot at what you're good at and you're loving the sect. And if you're not there yet, take more time to reflect. I'm here to prove that hip-hop can make it connect, because yo, there's some smiles on your face and this the first time that we met. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend, but this is me being Glenn, who don't have to pretend. And that's pretty much the message that I came to send. Living and breathing hip-hop until the very end, because it's school that made me believe the culture was ghetto. And I believed it to be so, and then I let it go. It lay dormant inside me for years, but now I feel it's exploding. I kind of feel chosen. Oh my gosh, is hell frozen? Because if you told me last year that I'd be doing this, I laugh at your face thinking you're ridiculous. Now I'm a part of ACE, talking to a bunch of kids to help them find their place in this crazy world we live. I guess the moral of the story here is that who you are is important, and that's a fact. If you're doing what you love, you're on the right track. Just make sure to use your talents and give back. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you very much for your energizing hip-hop presentation.